Before we get started, check out our sponsor, ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com, the leading innovator in water filtration systems. Get all of your water filters at ProPureUSA.com. Click the link below right now. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. It is July 3rd, 2014, one day before Independence Day, and this is an absolute historic moment. In fact, maybe sometime in the future when I'm long and gone, my great-great-great-great-grandchildren might watch this video. And hopefully, maybe it makes a difference. Maybe it doesn't. But what you're living through right now, what I'm living through, what we're all living through, is a historic moment for the United States. The Dow Jones Industrial Average just broke through an all-time high of 17,000. And there is a massive party on Wall Street. The same criminals that extorted trillions of dollars from the American people in 2008 and caused the greatest collapse in financial markets since the Great Depression are now having a giant party on Wall Street. And it's absolutely phenomenal. We are living through an unprecedented, historic time. The American empire literally crumbling to the ground. Not in what many suspected would be a deflationary collapse, but actually just the opposite, a melt up. What we're experiencing now in the United States, in global capital markets in general, is a hyperinflationary collapse fueled by the Federal Reserve, fueled by our government, fueled by our leadership that have taken America out into a back alley and shot it in the back of the head. All this stimulus, all this funny money, 0% interest rates going on 6 years now, post-2008, an ever-expanding Federal Reserve balance sheet into infinity that now provides all the liquidity to our financial market, whether or not they're buying our own bonds or our own mortgage-backed securities, or stimulating it with funny money to provide the liquidity so that our financial market and our stock market can hit new highs. I mean, I want you to think about this for a minute. We're hitting all-time record highs on Wall Street, and they still won't take their foot off the pedal of the bailouts, of the stimulus, of the 0% interest rates. In fact, there was a staged meeting between Janet Yellen and Christine Lagarde of the IMF yesterday, where Janet Yellen actually came out and said for the first time that she doesn't think investors are appreciating future losses and what that potential may be. But of course, they're not going to change policy, but because they can't. They can't change policy. The minute the Federal Reserve lays up on the gas, this entire system crashes to the ground. It would be abrupt and it would be very deflationary. It would literally crush America to the core. Now, of course, all this planned, all this orchestrated, this is a part of a much larger wealth transfer from the middle class to the elites. It's exactly what happened in 2008. It's why they orchestrated the bailouts. It's why they orchestrated the crash in the first place. Again, the same policies coming from Alan Greenspan in the Clinton era, taking rates down almost to zero and fueling giant bubbles in housing and in mortgage stock and asset classes across all of our economy is what caused the 2008 collapse. And now these same people expect you and I to believe that the same policies that caused the first one won't cause the ultimate doom. You know, it's almost like it reminds me of The Godfather and the scene where Al Pacino goes back to Europe and guts one of his enemies. And he makes a comment. He sticks a knife right in his stomach and says, Antonio Andolini, and then lifts it all the way up through his gut. It's the exact same thing that has happened to America. America murdered by these criminal politicians and these criminals on Wall Street, celebrating these pie-in-the-sky numbers like everything's great. You know, the real unemployment rate isn't 6%. It isn't the numbers they're selling you in the mainstream media. It's more like 15%, 16% if you look at the U6. Some would argue the number is more in the ballpark of 20+%. Even Donald Trump came out yesterday and all but said it's pretty much the end of the world for America and our financial markets. This is coming from billionaires like Steve Forbes that say he fears we will have a crash worse than the 1930s because of these policies. This is all coming to the United States of America. Not to mention we have growing external threats right now in the Middle East. Israel bombing the crap out of Gaza. We have a destabilization campaign, an effort which has largely been launched by the United States government, implicitly through places like Syria and Libya in Iraq. We have highlighted concerns with international travel. The United States mocking the intelligence of the American people by saying they've stepped up security ahead of July 4th weekend. We have American citizens, men and women, dying overseas in these wars and paying tribute to them tomorrow on July 4th. But the question we should all be asking is, what are we fighting for? What are we fighting for overseas in Afghanistan and Iraq if the real terrorists and the real criminals are at the White House? And they're on Wall Street, and they're on Capitol Hill. These murderous policies are going to affect you. They're going to affect your family. You know, what I'm looking for over the next 36 months is more irrational exuberance. I actually think that the market can go much, much higher than it currently is. Again, this is a hyperinflationary collapse fueled by 0% interest rates and funny money at the Federal Reserve. I was checking some local real estate numbers here in Scottsdale earlier this morning, and we are only 30% off the all-time peaks in real estate in some parts of Scottsdale. We're almost back to the bubblicious territory that we were before. Yet the Wall Street criminals party like it's 1929. You know, now we all know what it was like to live in the Roaring '20s. We all know what it must have felt like in 1929, right before the big one. Because this is the Roaring 2000s. What can you do about this? Number one, you can enlighten your own mind. You can enlighten yourself. You can share the truth with your friends and family if you care about them. Share it with your loved ones. You can protect yourself. You can buy things like gold and silver. I've always recommended, and again, please go seek professional financial advice. This is just my opinion, but I've always recommended 5 to 10% in gold and silver and precious metals. I personally also like land because it's indestructible. Another great investment. Another consideration is diversifying out of the US dollar completely with maybe another 5 to 10% of your portfolio. It could be in the Chinese yuan, for example, the renminbi. It could be in the Swiss franc. It could be in the Singapore dollar. Those are all ways that you could diversify your investments, protect you and your family from what's coming right now. Not to mention bare necessities, water filtration, food storage, guns, ammo, all the things that you're going to need to defend yourself when this shit show finally comes to roost. What happens next after this inflationary collapse is the big one. Whether or not this is sold or propagandized as an external threat coming from the Middle East or an internal quant trading computer implosion at the Federal Reserve or Wall Street doesn't matter. But what comes after the hyperinflationary collapse is a deflationary implosion. We could be living in an environment in the not too distant future where the real unemployment rate is 50+%, where everyone you know mostly is unemployed. It is not out of the ballpark with these uncharted policies that have never been accomplished or instituted in the history of the world. Again, past performance does not predict future returns. It would not be unheard of to have 100% annual inflation on a yearly basis because of these policies. Even the bulls on Wall Street will tell you they have no idea what's going to happen because this is unprecedented. We have never pumped and dumped this much money into a system, provided this much liquidity, these many bailouts, this many trillions of dollars, 0% interest rates into infinity. It's never happened before. This, folks, is your 1929 moment. And I suggest you get your shit together. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Happy 4th of July, Independence Day. I'm Christopher Green, hard-hitting it in your face. And click the link below to support our sponsor.